Hi guys, welcome back to the channel, and after a very long time I'm back with another book review, and that's what Booksfinity is meant for, right? We are here for book reviews. It's going to be 3 years of when I started this channel, and I've not reviewed a lot of non-fictional books, which I feel should be reviewed more and should be talked about more. So, keeping that in mind, the book that I'm reviewing today is The Anarchy by William Dalrymple. It's a book about the history of India, but it's more of a particular side of story that we don't talk about much. It is this fat book that we are going to talk about today. I remember reading this and completing it entirely back in 2021, and I like this book because the first time I saw it, I was very much intrigued with the book cover. But then when I read the entire book, I was too much intrigued with the content inside this. So let's talk about the content first and then talk about what is the major audience that this book aims for. Before I deep dive into this book, I want to ask you if you guys remember the history of India. I know not many of us paid attention during our history classes, but I'll try to sum up what we were taught in our school days in like 2 minutes or something. So in 18th century, there was Mughal Empire who had been very powerful. So India was under the control of the Mughals, and that was on the decline. So there were successive weak rulers and some internal strife that happened, and that weakened the empire, that led to some state of instability. And then when there was this state of instability and people started realizing that their future in India is uncertain, there was a rise of regional powers. So with the Mughal Empire losing control, regional powers began to assert themselves inside, and various states and kingdoms they vised for dominance. At this time, there was this enterprise that came in, and that is the East India Company, where William Dalrymple comes. And there's this East India Company that starts originating, and it originally comes in as a trading company and a trading enterprise, but it is more on capitalizing and focusing on the expand of influence that they did in India eventually. And through strategic alliances with the local rulers and military conquests, they established a firm rule in India. As you might already know, that policies and power is never static, but policies are something that remain constant. So the book talks about the power struggles. The book also talks about the political mechanisms in that country, in the country India, and it characterizes that period when Mughal Empire declined, the rise of East India Company happened, and it delves into this complex relationships between the company, the Indian rulers, and even other European powers, which basically reveals how complicated and how complex of the structure that was in the 18th and 19th century in India. Beyond this geopolitical narrative, the book also explores the social and economical impact the colonialization had on Indian society as per, and it examines how the company's policies, such as, let's say, land grabbing and exploitative taxation, devastated local economies, famines, communities. It sheds light on the resistance and resilience, even talking about the Jallianwala Bagh incident and massacre that happened back in 1919. The book is researched like a historian, and it's like a deep account of things that went through. It's a fascinating take for sure, because it talks about how the East India Company became very powerful in the 18th century. The book title comes from that chaotic time in India when Mughal Empire was falling apart, and it took advantage of this chaos that became stronger and stronger, and East India Company went on to establish itself. One great thing about this book is that it talks about that thrilling adventure. It transports you a bit back of the time, and that writing basically brings the political games and the intricacies of politics, the wars and personal stories of life, even that. And you won't want to put it down even if it's a historical non-fiction book. Dalrymple doesn't hide the bad things, and that's one thing that I loved about this book. The British rule did cause famines, and it hurt a lot of people to get what they wanted. And this reminds us of how big companies can sometimes fail. And many would call this the Britisher side of the story, and how a Britisher would justify the the colonial rule that they established in India. As I said, and one thing that I really like about the book is that it doesn't shy away. It doesn't shy away from the wrongdoings that the British Empire did. One of the fact being depicting the human cost of imperialism, and it exposes the devastating consequences of British rule, number one, including famines and cultural suppression, widespread suffering among the Indian population. There are personal stories, there are historical accounts, and there are pictures. So he highlights the harsh realities. He highlights what was the reality being faced by ordinary Indians during the turmoil, and there's this relevance to contemporary issues. It's rooted in the past, it's set in the past, but it raises important questions about contemporary issues like, let's say, corporate greed, geopolitical power struggles, and the legacies of colonialism that still exists in us and is rooted in our culture. You might also come across this fact that there's this British perspective which gets repeated, and there's this potential overshadowing of the experiences and voices of the Indians. And critics argue that a more balanced portrayal of both the British and Indian perspectives could provide a more comprehensive understanding of that. If you're a history enthusiast or you're a general reader who's interested in well-told stories, those who are interested in colonialism and corporate power, you should go and check out this book, which is The Anarchy by William Dalrymple. I will provide all the links in the YouTube description box below, and we'll meet very soon with a new video. Till then,